And these are some of his helpers. Together, they produced The Far Side, a cartoon that in just a few short years has won a huge following, big enough to put the Far Side cartoon books on the bestsellers list. Not only that, Gary Larson's work has even been showcased in a number of museums. Now, maybe you're the kind who turns right past the comic pages. Even if you are, we think that you'll have a laugh or two here. And thanks to Lynn Scher, we'll see the process by which a popular cartoonist produces a steady stream of funnies.
I never set out to offend anyone. I would never consciously, I don't sit down and say, gee, I wonder if I can really ruffle some feathers. I just end up doing it. Honestly, when I started doing this, all I wanted to do was pay my rent.
Gary Larson is genuinely perplexed by his enormous success as a cartoonist. Just 7 years after he started drawing it, his daily panel is one of the hottest items in syndication, reaching more than 80 million readers through almost 600 newspapers. His cartoon books have sold some 4 million copies, and a traveling exhibit has drawn Larson junkies to museums around the country.
Larson really holds a mirror up to life, and sort of a cracked mirror.
I think what's wonderful about the humor is it tends to be a little bit on the dark side.
The cartoon is called The Far Side, and it takes a decidedly off-center look at life on this planet. Example, the real reason dinosaurs became extinct. A grinning Godzilla drives along in his car. The license plate reads, I ate New York. Mother hen to sick chick. Quit complaining and eat it. Number 1, chicken soup is good for the flu, and number 2, it's nobody we know. Taboo subjects are part of the daily diet that Larson supplies to the family comic pages. But the shy 36-year-old doesn't live on the Far Side himself, and he seems more interested in making a personal statement with his cartoons than $1 million. In fact, he's slightly ambivalent about all the fuss. Does it give you pleasure to make other people laugh?
Yeah, I guess it does. Let me think about that. Yeah, I guess the answer would be yes, it does. Hell, I'm a cartoonist.
But you're not sure.
What would be the answer? Well, I don't... I think I sit down... I think the first thing I want to do is satisfy myself and do something that would make me laugh. I mean, my world is a lot smaller where I work.
And it is inhabited by some very different creatures. Larson grew up collecting frogs and salamanders in the swamps near his home in Tacoma, Washington. And he nearly majored in biology at Washington State. Today, he is still at ease, knee-deep in animals.
I can't believe it.
And animals form the framework for many of his jokes. One penguin to another. And now Edgar's gone. Something's going on around here. How birds see the world. Oh, lovely. Just the 100th time you've managed to cut everybody's head off. Gary Larson says he can't explain why he uses animals in his cartoons, except that he just likes them, and he's always drawn them since he was a kid. And by taking animals out of their cages and putting them into everyday situations, it gives him a chance to poke fun at the human condition.
Well, I'm impressed. I think I've been drawing them wrong.
The way Larson sees animals is a far cry from the way Walt Disney drew them. In fact, Gary's taste tends less towards the cute and furry and more towards the scaly and slimy.
A guy like this. They make good cartoon subjects, right?
They do. Yeah,
Why?
there's a lot of material in snakes. Just these big, legless reptiles. They have so much potential in humor. And they're carnivorous, that helps.
This satisfied snake has just devoured Garfield the cat, a rival cartoon character. More snake humor. Oh no, Elliot. Why? Why? Larson is something of a cult figure to scientists who recognize in his cartoons the voice of a kindred spirit. Calling on his own science background, he helped acquire specimens of fish for the San Francisco Aquarium on a field trip to Indonesia.
It's nostalgic to look at these dead fish.
You say you have reverence for scientists, yet it doesn't stop you from poking fun at them in your cartoons.
No, well, it's...
I'm thinking of
Yeah,
the
but
cartoon of the guy building the bomb and the other one about to explode the paper bag behind him.
Yeah. Well, I just have fun with it. It's the theme that occurs to me most frequently.
It is also the theme that underlies his only discernible political message, a firm commitment to saving the environment in a world that has often killed wantonly. Vindictive elephant to frightened human. Remember me, Mr. Schneider? Kenya, 1947. If you're going to shoot at an elephant, Mr. Schneider, you better be prepared to finish the job.
They're in here.
Under pressure to produce 7 cartoons a week, Gary Larson admits some days he just doesn't feel funny. But he did agree to try to examine the process by creating a cartoon for us while we watched.
Well, I can't think of anything. Okay, let's see. I'm drawing a chicken nudist colony. I started thinking of nude animals. Chickens without feathers hanging around on this beach.
Chicken nudist colonies. Notice he's putting animals in human roles again. We'll get back to this cartoon later, and you'll see Gary as he works out his drawing. Meanwhile, even though he says he can't explain where he gets his ideas, here's a big hint.
Well, I had a fear of the dark when I was a kid, and
He seems to understand the fears and fantasies of all of us, based on the things he dreaded himself as a child.
Occasionally I was asked by my dad to go down and get some firewood, which was stored in the basement. And it was hell for me to hear those words, because everything hideous that I could imagine lived in the basement. So I'd go downstairs and I'd get the wood, and hurrying as fast as I could before I was devoured. And halfway up the stairs, the lights would go off in the basement. My brother would be at the top of the stairs, holding the door shut, and he'd start chanting, "It's coming, Gary. Do you hear it? It's coming. Do you hear it breathing?" And, oh, God, I mean, it was just an indelible memory for me, trying to push this door open and get out of this basement. And that was a day in the life.
That's the kind of thing you grew up with, in other words.
Yeah, my brother was the kind of thing I grew up with.
And that fear is the kind of thing that has crept into the far side. Mom to boogeyman. Why, yes, we have some children here who won't eat their vegetables. And here is another clue to Gary Larson's twisted, macabre sense of humor. The book he favored as a child. It is called Mr. Bear Squash You All Flat, and it's about, believe it or not, a bear who goes around sitting on and destroying all the houses of smaller animals in the woods. Not surprisingly, it's out of print, but we found a copy and sprung it on Gary.
Oh, my God. I can't believe it. I can't believe it.
What was it about that book and that bear that really turned you on as a child?
There was something so mesmerizing about the image of this big bear going through the forest and squashing the homes of these little forest animals. And I just thought that was the coolest thing in the world. I guess it does sound a little demented, but I did really get off on this book. Read it again, Mom, read it again.
Once in a certain part of the forest there lived a very large and very stupid bear. His name was Mr. Bear Squash You All Flat. And this is why, and this is why. He liked to squash things. He liked to sit on things and squash them flat.
Did you think it was a little weird that he liked that book?
Golly, no, I think we got it for him.
Maybe it runs in the family. Larson also says that humor is generational, which may explain why his fans are concentrated in his own age group. Larson says they share the cynicism and irreverence that came from growing up in the 1950s and 60s.
It was going from Leave It to Beaver to bomb shelters, and I remember thinking, sitting in my 7th grade English class thinking that the world was going to end during the Cuban Missile Crisis. I mean, it made you look at the world a little bit askew.
Thank you.
That accounts for some of his appeal to today's college students, who flock to a recent lecture at UCLA where Gary tried to explain some of the subtleties in his humor.
The Holsteins visit the Grand Canyon. When I did this cartoon, I had so many people that told me they really liked it and how much they enjoyed it. But I never found anyone who ever saw the reason why I did it. And if you look at those two little calves in the foreground, one of them is doing this behind the other one's head. I did get some negative feedback on this one. Now let me get this straight. We hired you to babysit the kids, and instead you cooked and ate them both? But for me, when I did this, the focus of the humor in this is the word both, the emphasis on the word both. Like, well, one would be okay, but both.
That's the sort of detail he agonizes over. Remember the cartoon he's creating for us? It's been an hour and a half now, and Gary is already making changes. A shack he'd penciled in has been turned into a volleyball net.
Because I thought I'd rather have more chickens on this beach, and I thought that would be a good place in the background to have some playing volleyball, sort of in the back.
On the far side, it is as normal to find a chicken playing volleyball as it is to find a lemming wearing a life preserver, God as a game show contestant, winning, of course, or a group of cavemen carrying a giant carrot, early vegetarians returning from the kill. They're just some of the strange creatures that dwell in Gary Larson's world. Most are papier-mâché or plastic now, hanging on the walls of the upscale two-bedroom bachelor house in Seattle that his enormous success has bought. But despite his new income, Gary Larson is ill at ease with the other byproduct of fame, the publicity. He is honestly embarrassed that his great popularity has allowed folks to mail his cartoons and drink from them and count off the days by them. He says he's drawn the line at far-side dolls in an effort to restrain the only creature that seems to frighten him, what he's referred to as the merchandising monster. He worries it will destroy the very special rapport he's got with his readers.
I wouldn't want the readers who are really following this to suddenly get this sense that it's becoming real mainstream, that it's all for the dollar. I think it's getting to be these days almost where the comic pages are becoming mostly little advertising vehicles for other things that are where the real money is. And I think it sucks. I think it should be humor.
Which brings us back to his work in progress. It's deceptive. At one level, it's a simple line drawing of just another day at the beach. Except, of course, those sunbathers are naked chickens. And then the payoff. The sign that originally announced the Happy Grove Featherless Beach has evolved into the less obvious No Ducks, Larson's version of a chicken joke. Less than 3 hours after he began, Chicken Nudist Colonies is inked and ready for publication. And here's how it will look in color in your Sunday paper. A Larson commentary on the curious behavior of the rest of us two-legged creatures.
Would it be accurate to say that you have less respect for human beings than you do for animals?
Yes. I guess it would be. Well, I don't know if I really believe that or not. I guess down deep inside, no, I don't. But I don't know. Never met an Irish setter I didn't like or something.
You know, Lynn, I know people who like dogs and cats more than they like people.